welcome to East Meets West. You know him as the host of the podcast Talking Politics and Religion without killing each other. Emphasis on without killing each other. And the second most important man to hail from Freehold, New Jersey, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Corey Nathan.
And he is a 7-time Emmy-winning broadcast journalist, born and raised in beautiful Los Angeles, Rick Garcia. And I don't want to kill anybody because it's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful spring. We're off to a great start. We are the best team in the league. I am fired up, baby. Let's do it.
Well, so you must be excited about baseball, right? We had opening weekend. And so want to get first impressions, but we have to keep things in perspective, right? It's just a few games over the course of 162. But I'd love to get your first impressions.
There's no keeping
on
anything
how baseball got started.
In perspective. I got my Mets shirt on. I got my Mets socks on.
Wow.
I got my beat up old Brooklyn Dodgers hat because I got a little deference. You know, the Dodgers are about as good as the Mets so far this year. 3-1.
They're playing even. No undefeated teams. That shouldn't surprise anybody. You know, the wonderful legend Tommy Lasorda would say when I'd be covering their games and we'd cover his opening days, if they didn't win on opening day or they lost after about the first or second game, in his very taciturn and colorful self, he would say, "Well, geez, what did you think we were going to go 162-0?"
I love it. I was giving my brother crap about the same thing. You know, Carson Bench, our vaunted rookie, hit a home run. I said, "At this pace, baby, at this pace." You know,
at this pace. I had an interview with a guy by the name of Howie Kendrick, played for the Angels.
Oh yeah, sure.
And hits a home run in their opening day. And I'm in the locker room interviewing him, and I say, "Howie, you are on pace to hit 162 homers."
That's right.
And you know, it's cold water, right? Because I've said it before, baseball is way too long, 162 games. But in these moments, you know, there are some teams that get to be a little excited about what the prospects are, right? High expectations for the Dodgers, high expectations for the Mets, the Yankees, the usual suspects, right? Phillies will be there. But then you look at this time of year and Pittsburgh has a chance, although not this time. Kansas City, you know, the teams that you know aren't going to be there, they have a little life at the beginning of the year. Anything stand out to you in terms of how baseball got launched?
So it very, very early returns. You know, like you say, it's a long season. So even when we're a month into the season and a Pittsburgh or a second-tier team is 5, 6, 7 games over 500, or 10 or 15 games over 500 in the first month. Great month, but we know teams are going to come back to their own watermark. I will say, though, that 3 or 4 games into the season, most teams have already played 4 games, you start to see the early returns. You at least have a little bit of a glimpse. Okay, the offseason moves, how is it playing out so far? And listen, the Dodgers, you got Tucker, who made a couple of over-the-wall catches, has saved a couple of home runs.
Drove in a couple of runs. Yeah.
You got that some no-name reliever who
Diaz,
had a couple of
a couple of saves.
A couple of saves. And that lineup, man, I'm telling you, if there's somebody who doesn't win the MVP that's not named Shohei Ohtani, his name's going to be Will Smith. So it's like the Dodgers are showing what the Dodgers can be, you know, and they have several Cy Young candidates in that rotation, one of whom is already due to be DFA'd, you know.
Yeah.
So the early returns. I'll tell you what, though. I'm encouraged by what I see from the Mets because what they said they wanted to address, they certainly addressed. And we could get into that in more depth if you like. But
look, again, 4 or 5 games in. The teams, you know, that got off to the quick start. And by the way, a lot of the really good teams don't get off to quick starts. All of the ones that are supposed to be there got off to quick starts. The Yankees off to a decent start. The Mets, the Dodgers.
There's 10 teams that are 3-1, 4 of which are in the NL East. So,
and one of them will, you know, in the case of Miami, could they be a surprise? I'm going to say no. Probably won't be around.
Probably not.
Maybe by May we don't hear much about them. But I'd love to be proved wrong because I really want to see balance in baseball. We don't have it. As much as you know I love my Dodgers, I do not like this system, and I think we need a salary cap. I think it'll make the NFL so much better when that day comes.
Well, I can tell you this in terms of balance.
Major League Baseball, rather. Yeah.
In terms of balance, I can tell you this: in the NL East, at the end of the year, the Phillies are going to have better than a 250 winning percentage, and the Nationals and the Florida Marlins are going to have worse than a 750 winning percentage. So they're balance. It's a long enough season where balance, the water will find its level. Like I said,
we'll see how that plays out. Now, you know what? It's so New York. Bo Bichette, not off the.
How did I knew you were going to go here?
Well,
how
no,
did
but
I know?
mean, look, but it's so New York. Here's the beauty of this, though. Bo Bichette was like 1-14. I don't know how many strikeouts he had to start the season, getting shellacked by the fans in New York. And his response, and this is brilliant, was, I thought they were going to boo me sooner.
Yeah.
So I mean, look. Are you going to turn around and if he goes 3 for 4 the next game, give him a standing O? I mean, come on.
So
come on. It's early in the season. What's the big hang up here if a guy goes 1 for 14?
All right. So a few things.
It's not the playoffs.
One is there's a few right ways to handle this, and Bo Bichette, to his credit, checked a lot of those boxes. First of all, you got to own it. You have to be harder on yourself than the fans are on you. You can't blame the fans, and he did all the right things. And I think the other thing too is you got to start playing well, which he did in the first game in St. Louis. He was arguably the player of the game. He had a couple of RBIs, so he'll be fine. Especially the way he answered those questions. There were guys in the past. The Mets had Kevin McReynolds, who was just a surly guy that just didn't want to talk to the media, hated the fans. Yeah, Randy Johnson in his brief time with the Yankees, but pushing a cameraman. That's not a way to ingratiate yourself with New York fans. But if you own it, or if you're in on the fun, there are some outfielders who are just ribbing the fans, and it's not even a love-hate relationship. It's a love-love relationship.
Well, I know, but
that's the love language. Love language of New York Mets fans is boo. So that's our love language. We're just telling you,
like
we're trying to
Cooper Cup.
We're just
Puka. I get it. Okay.
Yeah, we're trying to encourage. That's encouragement. That's what it is.
We all know that that's what it's like in the East. All right, we get that. But shouldn't there be like a little bit like? Don't you get, maybe like a 2 or 3 week probationary period at least?
Absolutely not.
Come
Absolutely
on.
Not. No.
It's 162 games. If he's hitting 350, will you take your booze back and maybe send him a check?
Absolutely. No. We won't send him a check.
What do you
we'll
do?
Be applauding
What do you do?
really loud. It's a passionate fan base. Hey, he got a hole at bat and he wasn't at booed. He got two at bats and he wasn't booed. Listen, it was the third game. It was, after he's, I think, 10 strikeouts into, 3 games in. So he was, and by the way, if you know Old Shea and now Citi Field, it takes all of literally, I'm not exaggerating, 100 people who are booing to make it sound like the whole place is booing.
Well, I loved Old Shea. That was one of my favorite parks to go to. Visit when I traveled with the Dodgers because it was very similar to Dodger Stadium. But
the difference.
It's like. Go ahead.
The difference though is at Dodger Stadium, nobody's getting booed in their first at bat because nobody's there yet.
Good point. They don't get booed late in the game either because they're not there. They've gone home.
Beating the traffic.
But here, again, I believe there should be at least a probationary period. They're treating Bo Bichette like it's his fault they didn't get Kyle Tucker. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
No, come on. It wasn't that bad. I heard the boos. It wasn't that bad. It really was just a handful of fans. And he took it in stride. He took it like a real pro. And I think he's going to be beloved by, first of all, he's going to have better numbers than that first series. He already showed it in the first game in St. Louis. And, he hits a couple of home runs, a couple of key 2-out RBIs. And the fans are going to come around to embrace him. And those 40,000 fans who are cheering him on are going to be a heck of a lot louder than those 100 or so boo birds that are out there.
In all fairness, too, and I know East Coast fans are really smart. I give them lots of credit, but, he's also learning a new position over there, third base, man. That's the hot corner over there.
Yeah.
So, he deserves, I think, a little bit of grace.
Yeah, and the
before
fans
they pile on.
they pay attention to that too. Like he had an error, I think, in the second game. So the third game, he was out early and taking infield practice. So they
Right.
just want to see a guy working hard, grinding, doing his best. You want to see results too, but as long as they're not, he's not blaming the fans for his his strikeouts.
People don't realize how difficult a change of position is for some of these guys, right? You think, oh, he's an infielder, he should be able to play them all. No, shortstop is a far
Very
cry
different
from
position.
playing third base. You got time to surround the ball.
Yeah.
You need to have speed. It's all about quickness at third base, and then you
Yeah.
have to realize if the ball's on you fast, you do have time to get up and make the throw. And so, that stuff he's learning, man. And
That
in
was-
Major League Baseball, that ball comes at you that fast, man.
That was the other thing too that caught my attention is he owned up to the fact that he allowed his adjustments in the field to take over at the plate as well.
Yeah,
It was
that's
on his
common.
mind. He was trying
happens,
to make a moment as opposed to just playing the game. So he'll come around. I'm sure he will.
Listen, that's what we do on the show. We call balls and strikes. And speaking of balls and strikes, I love the new ABS system.
like it.
Now let me set this up. That's the replay system where each team gets to challenge twice during a game minimum.
Yeah.
A ball or a strike. So if the hitter, the pitcher, or the catcher can ask for a replay on a ball or a strike.
Yeah.
And I just love this. It's one of those things where little by little we're bringing baseball into modern times.
Right.
As much as I love baseball tradition, I think it's time to evolve. We did that with the pitch clock, which is great. And now, and I think there were quite a few overturned balls and strikes.
Yeah.
And so you get two of them. If you say to the umpire you're a hitter and you tap your helmet and you say I want you to check that, and you thought it was a ball and it turns out it was a strike, you lose that challenge and you'll only get those two challenges. If you're right on the challenge, you get to keep those two challenges. So there's a strategy in when you want to use those. What are your thoughts on that?
So I like it. First of all, it takes no time. And the little bit of time, it's about 5 seconds, 10 seconds max. And the little bit of time that it does take, it builds up a little bit of drama. There were certain circumstances. What's his name? Eugenio Perez that went over from Seattle to the Reds. There were a couple of instances where it was a full. He ended up working out a walk in a key two in a row where he ended up working out a walk in a key moment in the game. So there's real tension there. There's real drama that can be built up there. At the end of the day, fans want to get it right. It's interesting to see too that there are certain umpires. In a lot of instances, it was less than a half of an inch. So I don't blame umpires that are missing calls that are less than a half inch inside or outside the zone, and they have to get
tough
it wrong.
calls. Yeah.
But there are some that get a lot of them wrong, number one, and a lot of them wrong by a lot. If you're missing a call by a ball and a half, 6 inches, then there's something wrong with the umpire. So those things I think will be addressed over time. But
And by the way, this will help them evaluate umpires, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, so-
The other interesting thing, I don't know if any of the games you were watching, if this dynamic played itself out. The Mets were playing Pittsburgh, and there's a young player who hasn't really lived up to his billing yet, O'Neal Cruz. And very, very early in the game, there was a call where he tapped on his helmet, and he got it wrong. And it brought up an interesting dynamic that the broadcasters were talking about where it could end up pitting players against players. If early in the game, and it's not a high leverage situation, they're abusing their privilege, and then the team ends up running out because they only get two. If they get two wrong, there's no more challenges that they
Right.
get to call for. So other players could get pretty annoyed with one player who's abusing that privilege. It's an interesting dynamic. I thought
It's a great
could
point.
emerge.
And here's the other thing with it too is you would think the strategy might be, okay, let's save this till the ninth inning. But the key play could be in the first inning, right? That could be the key to jump starting a big inning. So I don't know that you can rely on that. I will tell you this, you have to be certain. And you know what I think would be a great stat is to figure out at the end of the year which player made the most challenges and was right most often.
So
Because that would tell you what kind of eyes these guys have.
so
right?
far, Salvador Perez on the Kansas City Royals. Did you see that sequence? He like 3 or 4 in a row. He was trying to tell Doug Eddings, the umpire behind him, like, hey, listen, I don't think you're getting the bottom of the zone here. Let me show you.
Do you want me to ump?
Yeah. He was getting each one right, like 3 in a row. It was amazing. So,
look, I love it. It's something new and it's a lot of fun, and I think it works perfectly for baseball.
Yeah.
Let's move on. The Final Four is set, my friend.
No, it's not.
I mean,
no, it's not. We're not going to talk about this, are we?
Well, look.
I want to talk about
this whole Duke
No.
fiasco.
No.
I mean, they led almost the entire way. Now, look, in all fairness, UConn is a really good basketball team.
Really well coached.
Really good basketball
Really good
team.
team.
They may win it all, by the way. So, but to have that, to be as good as you are with the players you are and not be able to hold a lead, I think I blame that on coaches.
All right.
What do you think?
So I need to pull up. You need to put your therapist hat on. Yeah, I need to pull up the chair, lay on the couch, as you often say.
While you're doing that, let me just point out the four
Sure.
teams that are left. We've got UConn playing Illinois, and then Arizona and Michigan. That's going to be a great
man, that
matchup.
Michigan team.
Arizona surprised me. Michigan's fantastic. I said this to you last time we talked. I thought it would be good to see a Michigan-Duke battle. I think I'd be happy to see a Michigan-UConn battle. And but anyway, go ahead, sir. Are you?
So I do have
resting
that
and
final,
relaxing?
by the way. That Michigan team is huge. Have you watched them play?
Yes.
I mean, there are some big guys on that team.
Yes.
And UConn's so well coached. All right. So here's the thing. I root for Duke partly because I have enough perpetual losers that I'm doomed to root for, right?
Yeah,
I root for,
sure.
I got of all the teams in all the college and pros that I root for Duke because I have to have one winning team, right? I didn't think that Duke would put me through what the Boston Red Sox fans must have gone through in 1986 when they saw that ball trickle through Buckner's legs. I couldn't believe what I was watching. I could not believe. Now, to UConn's credit, they were 15 down at half, and Duke was holding steady for a good part of the second half, but slowly but surely, UConn was chipping away, and it's a solid, really well-coached team. I see the same thing in a lot of the best-coached teams. First of all, swarming defense, just absolutely suffocating defense, and just every time up and down the floor, make one stop, get one hoop. And then UConn, throughout the entire game, they were like 1 for 17, 1 for 18 on threes. All of a sudden, they started hitting a couple of threes. Man. And to your point, the Boozer kids, they both played great games, by the way, throughout the entire tournament. But that was a mental mistake. Caden Boozer and the entire Duke fan base is never, ever, ever going to forget. He just needed to hold the ball. He just needed to hold the ball. And there you go. I felt like I was watching Reggie Miller back in the Garden beating the Knicks again with 8 seconds left. It was awful. I couldn't believe what I was watching.
No, I think it's a good Final Four. I think Arizona and Michigan will be fun to watch. I'd like to see UConn get there, and let's just see how. And here's the thing about UConn. You wonder if Hurley, who turned down the Lakers job a couple of years ago, if there are times where he doesn't regret not being an NBA guy. And I just wonder if they win the whole thing, if there's any reason for him to hang around.
There are guys.
He's an incredible coach.
There are guys who are just better suited for the college game. I thought about this for football. I've thought about this for basketball.
That's true of every sport. Yeah.
Part of it is because a huge part of the college game, especially today, is recruiting, especially when you got the portal and you got players transferring from one school to another. Guys like Pitino have been able to adapt. Guys like Danny Hurley, what he's an excellent strategic coach. His players are ready for every single game. They make adjustments in game. He's so good at every aspect of the game. But I love to see that guy in a room when he's sitting down with mom and dad, or he's recruiting the family and his recruiting team. So that's such a huge part of the game that doesn't translate to the pro game.
You still have the benefit of these young guys listening.
Yeah.
And once you get to the NBA, man, it's,
we have an example of that going the other way with the Tennessee baseball coach who's coaching the
Padres.
The Giants. The Giants.
I'm sorry, Giants.
Yeah.
Who haven't started off well.
And he's giving fiery speeches in the locker room, and they're like, "Hey, coach. Hey, Skip. What are we doing here? We're not 18 years old.
We've been here longer. We've been here longer than you have. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, the NBA is working really hard on tanking and trying to prevent tanking, at the end of the season where teams, they know they don't have a chance to go anywhere and they just want to wind up with better lottery odds and get a good draft pick, right? I think this is similar to the tanking thing in the sense that also resting players has been an issue for the NBA because people spend a lot of money to see LeBron James come to a city or a Luka Doncic come to their city where they don't have the benefit and luxury of watching these players, every single weekend in their home city, and then all of a sudden they're not playing. The NBA has a rule where if you get a 16th technical foul, you're suspended for a game. Now they can overturn that 16th technical foul if they think the refs didn't get it wrong. But if the league thinks the refs get it right, then a player gets suspended for a game. That happened to Luka Doncic recently. It didn't affect the Lakers a great deal. They wound up playing Washington, which is a team that's really on hard times, and so they didn't really need him. But again, if you're paying, it's your only game you're going to go to, and you're hoping to see Luka Doncic. What do you think of the technical rule, the 16th tech that allows? And by the way, going forward, if he gets 2 more technicals, he gets suspended another game. And by the way, this is true of any player who gets 16 Ts over the course of a season. What do you think about that?
So my biggest takeaway of this particular story is it's made me appreciate Luka that much more. I've always appreciated Luka's game from afar, but now watching a bunch more of Luka's games this season with the Lakers I didn't realize how much of my brother and I have an expression for it called red ass. He's a hard nose. If he was playing in baseball, his uniform would always be dirty. So he's playing with his elbows up. I didn't know that was a part of his game in order to accumulate as many as 16 technicals over the course of a season. So if anything, it's just made me appreciate him that much more.
Okay, let me give you the flip side of that. As a Lakers fan and a Luka fan, I think a little too much whining wears on your team.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's also a whiner, right?
Yeah.
If a guy's getting physical and he's mixing it up and he's like the old Kurt Rambis days and the Dennis Rodman days where they're getting their technicals the hard way, right?
Right. Yeah.
But why didn't you call that? And
right.
And I'm sitting there jawing with the referee while the other team's running down the court and throwing the ball down and scoring points on me. In that regard,
what's interesting is the Knicks have a player, Karl Anthony Towns, who was just he was the MVP of crying like a big old baby the first half of the season. It wasn't until somebody must have gotten in his ear, maybe it was the coach, because there were rumors that they were at odds. That Mike Brown and Karl Anthony Towns were at odds sometime around January when they were in that losing streak. So somebody must have gotten him in his ear, because the last few games of the Knicks that I've watched, he's not doing nearly as much crying. And by the way, the second half of his season has been a heck of a lot better than the first half of his season. So there's something to be said about that.
No question. And look, I think a player hurts the team anytime he's not playing, right? Whether it's injury or whether it's because of technical fouls. This is something that he can correct.
Yeah.
Hey, buddy, just get back on defense. You can cry about the play when play stops.
Yeah.
If you're mixing it up and you're playing hard underneath and you get called for a technical foul, I have less of a problem for that.
Good.
And I guess I'm okay with the league implementing this rule. They have to protect their referees.
Sure. Yeah.
But when you're losing superstar players toward the stretch run there, that's a problem.
Yeah, if I'm in DC, if I'm in Charlotte, if I'm in a city where you get these stars to your city once or twice a year at most, you want to be able to watch the future Hall of Famers. So yeah, I see your point, but I don't know. Overall, I love the fact that Luka's playing with his elbows up, in addition to scoring almost 40 points a game these last dozen games.
MVP. We'll have that discussion when that'll be announced. But just looking at his point average, his assists and his rebounds, he's a triple crowner kind of a guy. He's really does so much for the team.
Yeah.
You ready to pop that culture?
Let's pop that culture.
Let's do it.
Pop that culture.
All right. This is kind of a fun story. I like this because this is sort of the inside and the background kind of stuff that you don't see with players. There was a former New York Knicks ball boy, David Snowden. He made an appearance on the Mark Jackson show, and he was talking about what it was like to have opposing teams and especially legendary players, come into the locker room. And the way teams in all sports set this up is they have their own set of ball boys, and they'll put, and they could be girls too, is they'll put half of them are in the home locker room, the other half are in the visiting locker room, right? So the visiting team doesn't bring their own ball boys to them, to a city with them. And this ball boy, who was a former Knicks ball boy, said that he thought one of the most generous people back when he was a ball boy, and he saw a lot of greats come through there. He mentioned Isaiah Thomas, Dominique Wilkins, among them. That Michael Jordan, by far, he thought was the most gracious and incredible and generous player with the ball boys during his playing days. Which is, quite a compliment, right, for a guy like that, who we know already is one of the, if not, some will say, arguably the greatest player of all time, but that he was kind of people in those situations. Now, I'll just tell you the flip side, and then I want to get your input on this. Then his old colleagues in the sport, Charles Barkley and Shaq, and some of those guys would talk about how cheap Michael Jordan was, right? and my response to that is, well, if he's with his rich buddies, I don't have a problem with him being cheap when you've got these multimillionaires on the golf course with you or wherever you're hanging out with them. What do you think about that? Are you happy to know that one of the greats had that kind of generosity with those people who weren't as lucky as he?
Yeah. I'm an absolute sucker for stuff like that. So I do have to say, first of all, when I saw the ball boy's name, I thought, wait, is this the WikiLeaks guy? No, but that's Edward Snowden. So I got that a little bit off. But no, in all sincerity, I am a sucker when I hear about an all-time great like MJ, who's generous. Sometimes it shows up in small ways. There was a documentary. I forgot the reporter's name. Where she told a story about MJ knowing about her father being sick or her father having passed away, and just in the in the tunnel on the way to the locker room, he just asked her a very human question: "Hey, how's your dad doing?" I like that. The other day on the court at halftime, John Shire, the coach of Duke basketball, it was something little, and I hope that others notice this. He said, "Hey, thanks, Tracy." Tracy Wolfson, the reporter on the court, just the idea that it's not just she's a human being. I like the fact that in the heat of battle, he could still recognize somebody's humanity. So there's something about that really he won me over. Let's put it that way.
And sometimes it's the little things too. And again, there are other players who will refute that. Wayne Gretzky said that they were at an event somewhere. It was a poker party. Yeah, and that he tipped one of the dealers like a $5 chip or something at that time, probably thinking that all these rich dudes at this poker party are probably going to wind up tipping fairly well at the end of the game anyway. But that my personal experience is seeing that as a sports journalist on two occasions. One, I was working in Las Vegas, and the heavyweight champion at the time was Larry Holmes, and he gets out of a limo. He'd just come in from the airport. We were there to greet him with a camera, trying to grab an interview as he got into town to get ready for a big fight, and pulls out a wad. It was like 20s, but it was a wad of 20s. Handed it to the valet guy who came to greet him at the limo and talk about getting bags and things like that. Wad of 20s, and this was 1986, I think. Yeah, 85, I believe.
Wow.
And then I remember traveling with the Dodgers in 1990. Was in Montreal. It was the first road trip I'd experienced with the team on their charter. We were in Montreal. It was pretty cold at the time, and I remember seeing Eddie Murray. He's like, "Hey Rick, how do you like Montreal so far?" I said, "It's great, but it's cold, and I didn't pack anything because coming in from the West Coast and the weather was perfect." And he turned to his brother, who always traveled with him, or very often traveled with him. They said, "Hey, run up to the room, grab one of my letter jackets.
Oh, that's great.
Bring it down." And he said, "Here, just keep this for the trip. Keep this for the road trip." I'm like, "All right," and so a lot of these guys are much more generous than they let on sometimes, and I think there are sports journalists that always look for the bad side of these guys. So great to hear. By the way,
you reminded me. By the way, you reminded me. By the way, why this touches a nerve for me. Is when I first got to town, when I first got to LA, my first job, I was a messenger. And then my second job, I was a limo driver. and I got to have some famous people in the back of my car, and I ended up driving Ed McMahon. If you remember Ed, he was
Hi-oh!
yeah, that's right.
Johnny Carson's.
I got him a bunch of times, and usually it was just an airport run. He lived in the flat part of Beverly Hills, so for me it was like all of a. I actually greeted him at the gate. It was before 9/11. You could go to the gate. So I did go the extra mile for him, quite literally, but it was only all of about a 15, 20-minute run. And yet every time he pulled off a $100 bill, tipped me. Wow. And in those days, I was a kid in the mid 90s, it was $100 made a big difference, made my
deal.
week.
You know? Kidding me?
So,
yeah. And are you a big tipper?
I am. Sometimes irresponsibly so.
Okay. Yeah. I used to overdo it. I was always, my minimum was always 20%. I didn't whittle down the tax part, like, okay, you're supposed to subtract the taxes and then you get to the true balance and then you tip on that. But now, now that I need to do discounts at Sizzlers, I'm closer to 18%, I think.
This is true. This is true. I see him. We go to lunch, after these recordings. So.
Listen, Corey, Schmatty Pants. They got CPK's got a $12 lunch special.
That's actually what happens. There's it's something in our DNA. If you come from Jewish stock, where your Yiddish accent, even if you were, never spoke Yiddish, it just gets thicker and thicker the older you get. I see it in my parents. They were born in Brooklyn, and yet they're talking with the schmitz, the schmaltz, and the sting and the that. I'm like, Dad, that's not Brooklyn. That's you sound like a German now. Like, what are you doing?
It's like watching a Jerry Lewis movie, Lady.
Yeah.
All right, listen. This is a lot of fun. We have to say goodbye, though.
We do have to say goodbye.
Yeah,
I was just getting into it. Okay.
Otherwise, we have to put more money in the meter.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Well, I'm Rick Garcia. He's Corey Nathan. It's East meets West. Thanks so much for joining us.
Don't forget to let everyone know you can find us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your favorite podcasts. And please do us a favor and write a review. The reviews really do help. We'd love for other folks to find this show and join in on these fun conversations. This is fun, Rick.
Yeah, there might even be a big tip in it for you.
That's right.
Not.
Baby got